classes because we are athletic trainers, and so ready to get practical. This is all hands-on projects. So let me get started here. There we go.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Courtney Peart. As I was introduced, I am in Selah, Washington, so a little town by Yakima. I've been an athletic trainer for 13, actually 14 years as of like yesterday. Sorry, we have announcements going on in school. Um, I've been an athletic trainer for 14 years now, and been teaching for 10. I'm in my 8th year at Selah. And so I love what I do. I get to teach sports med all day, and then I'm the athletic trainer after school. When I'm not working millions of hours a week, you can find me usually going to Sounders games, which woohoo, go Sounders. Or I have some adopted kids or my former athletes play college basketball, so I travel all over the country to watch them play. I love country music. And Steph and I have known each other for about 15 years now, so we do not currently teach near each other, but we did before, and so we've kind of been friends. And I am also the current president for our Washington Health Science Board. So that's me.
And the pictures that you have in London.
Oh, yes. I took a group of students I did the what is it called? What am I? EF, educational first tour this last summer with my other health science teachers. And we did a tour to Scotland, London, and Paris. And it was really cool health science based tour. And I actually convinced Stefanie to take her students. So she's going this summer to London and Scotland. So we had lots of fun. And it was super awesome. I'd never been over to Europe. So it was a really cool trip for me. So
This is the problem with me and Courtney, is that we tend to like, oh, that's really cool, I want to do that, so I'm going to do that too. And then we rope ourselves into plenty of things. I'm Stefanie Brophy. I've been in education for probably 13 years now. This is a little outdated, but and I've been an athletic trainer for 13, 14 years. I went to Eastern Washington University in Washington, and then I double majored actually so that I could also teach PE. So that's why I have the physical fitness tech class that I will talk about a little bit in case any of you do personal training classes or PE classes that are associated with CTE. And then I am the president-elect for our health science CTE committee for Washington State. I have three kids, 12, 10, and 5. And that's all I do after school is take them wherever they need to go. I'm also the head football coach for girls flag football here at GK, which I enjoy just as much as I enjoy teaching, and I love football. So, and my husband is also, he's the O-line coach for our boys tackle varsity team. So, and then all three of my kids play football. So we are just all football all the time, which it comes in handy that I'm an athletic trainer because then I see them and they always complain about what's wrong with them for my kids or even as a coach. So I get to use it all the time, which is great. And I teach at Kapowsin High School. And one of these pictures is from our state sports med competition that happens every April in Washington State. I'm not sure if any of you guys have that as well, but we get to take a team to state to compete in different areas of sports medicine. And me and Courtney will talk about that a little bit later in our presentation for CTSOs. This is the whole purpose of this presentation is just to give everyone that's listening the opportunity to add more practical hands-on materials to your curriculum that you already have. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but our district is moving to standards-based grading, and I'm not sure if everyone else is too or has that experience. So we have been trying to think outside the box to add things so that the kids can have multiple places of measurement. So the whole point of this presentation, you guys can take whatever you want from here and use it in your own classroom. There is a Google Drive that we have with all of the assignments and documents that you would need to do this in your own classroom. And you can have access to that via Nancy's magic later.
So I'm going to start off strong with sorry for not warning you there was fake blood coming. So Steph talked about standards-based grading. We do it at our school. So when I started as a teacher, I don't have a teaching degree. Unlike Stefanie, I don't have one, and I do now, but I didn't have a teaching degree. And so all I knew was, 100 points for a test and you miss 5 and you get a 95%. And that's just where you are. And so I actually about 5 years ago went away from doing any written tests. My students don't, the only one they do is their CPR test. The rest are all projects or labs that we do that are summatives. So one of my first ones I do is our Gray's Anatomy wound practical. And as a caveat, Steph and I found some of these things that we've adapted over the years online. Some of them we made up. So you might see some things that you've seen before somewhere else, and we've just kind of adjusted. So this is during my first aid unit, my first aid CPR unit, because obviously during CPR, they get their practical of doing the actual CPR on the dummy. But for me, they weren't getting anything out of the first aid portion. So they get with a partner. This is a 2-day lab for us. And essentially they make a fake wound on their partner, and then they have to properly clean it and talk about what scenario would have caused this wound. And then they have to answer a bunch of questions from an article that we popcorn read in class. And then the next day they switch and they do it. It's probably one of the most fun labs in my first year program. It kind of hooks the kids a little bit. And it's always fun to get the parent phone calls because the kids will send their parents a picture and say, Mom, look what happened in school. And then my phone incessantly rings. And I'm like, guys, I told you to tell your parents it was fake. So generally speaking, it's a really fun, hands-on, very cheap lab. I buy most of my supplies from the Dollar Tree. They love it when I come in and take all of their lovely powder and liquid makeup and cotton balls, because that's what I buy from there. Nancy, to answer your question on popcorn read is where kids I just pop over to who's ready to read next, and they get to pick the next person that reads. And there's a bunch of different forms of popcorn reading, but it's a fun lab. Kids really love it, and they learn more than I think from the lovely CPR video slides that we go through. So good lab.
This one is for, this is what we do for fractures. I adapted the celery lab from a friend of mine who posted it, and I just added a worksheet with it. The worksheet is in the Google Drive, but essentially they're cutting up celery to replicate different fractures that we go over in class. So usually we'll do this after we've gone over directional terms and body planes, and then we're talking about different types of fractures. And so with that, probably a couple weeks before we do fractures, we do directional terms, and they do what's called a banana lab, that they cut the banana in different ways to simulate like a sagittal cut if they're doing surgery, or a transverse cut, or whatever they're doing. They have a whole slideshow that they work through with the banana and cutting it in different ways, but they have to use the correct terminology. They really like the banana lab. Just make sure your bananas are not really ripe. The less ripe, the better. Otherwise it gets really messy. And they really do love the celery lab. And I used whiteboard markers, and they just drew on our tables because then it comes off really easily. So it actually doesn't require any extra work besides the celery, and then they do the rest of the steps. So that, but all that stuff is in the Google Drive as well, if you ever wanted to adapt that. And then the next one, also with anatomical and directional terms, is this Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. And they get to decorate their potato however they see fit. But the things that they're adding to their potato has to represent a certain directional term. So like some of them have a hat on, and that represents superior. Some of them have a skirt, and that represents the transverse plane. You just keep going with certain things that would represent a body directional term or anatomical term. And one of the other things, the example in the actual Canvas course is a mohawk haircut could represent the mid-sagittal plane. So at the bottom there, they have to put all of those terms onto their person, and then they have to make a story about their potato. Um, they actually have the most fun with this because they get to be creative, and I don't give any guidelines on what they have to use or what they can't use. I put a bucket of craft supplies on a table, and they can take whatever they want out of that bucket and put it on their potato, however they want. They have scissors and glue and everything else. And the stuff that they come up with is actually really fun. And then I put them on display in a display case for people to see, just for like a week or so until the potatoes go bad. But they actually really like this one. And we take a whole class period and do this, so they have enough time to do all of that.
It's good. I did it this year too for the first time. The kids really loved it. Cheap and easy to do too.
It is really cheap, yeah. I ordered like a big craft supply kit on Amazon, and then I just bought potatoes, and that like it was probably no more than like $40 for everything, so it stays within the budget.
Yeah. So this is actually something I'm in the middle of prepping for right now. At our school, we do a white coat ceremony. This is going to be our 4th year. Our white coat ceremony is in like 2 weeks. So I'm like in the midst of like planning and prepping. We gave out 55 last year. I think this year we're at 60. It's a great thing. Any of you that have gone through any type of white coat ceremony in your career or just seen it, it's a pretty significant time. And if you want to know like more about like how we dig into this, I can give you more information later. But essentially the kids have to be a junior or senior. They have to complete at least 3.5 credits with our health science pathway. We have 7.5 credits. We've got a pretty big pathway. When I started here 8 years ago, it was just me. And now there's 3 of us. And we offer a lot of different classes. And so the kids pick somebody in their life to coat them. And it's kind of a cool night. We give out awards. We give out our honor cords for our seniors. And you can see like the smiles on everybody's faces. The cool thing I love that Heather and I do here is our honor cords are red and white, which is pretty normal for the medical field. But for kids that are our seniors that are getting honor cords, if they're also going into the medical field, we give them either a copy of Grey's Anatomy, the book, or this year we actually decided to buy coloring books, anatomy coloring books, and pencils for them. And so that's kind of a cool thing we added on the last couple of years. So great ceremony. It is not cheap. I will be honest. The white coats they're not cheap. You spend 60 of them. They're probably $10 a pop. We got a grant the last couple of years that's helped us out with this, a local grant. And so that's been nice. But our CT director is very supportive of our pathway celebrations. And so he usually spends a lot of money out of his budget to support this program. So it'll be interesting to see how we usually have about 400 or 500 people in attendance. So it's a pretty big ceremony.
The difference between, so Courtney is the only high school in her district, and in my district, it covers over about 200 square miles. So we have 3 comprehensive high schools, and I just for reference, I tried to do the same thing in my school, and they refused to pay for anything. So that's kind of the pushback. I mean, it depends on your CT directors, but so I personally buy a white coat for all my sports med seniors that have been in the program for at least 2 years and have participated in our state competition. So you can adapt this to whatever works for you and your program. This is a really cool thing that they do because it also involves your culinary department.
I think the next slide shows that. I think. Yeah. So we also, that's kind of these pictures are not my pictures. We include a lot of our other CTE programs. So our photography students and videographer students come and take all the pictures and make videos. Our catering students, they don't do these fancy cookies. We had to buy those somewhere else, but they make like a Chex Mix, and they do like veggie boards and meat and cheese platters for us. And then our woodworking students make our plaques that we give our kids. And then our events management class, we have an events management class, like hospitality class. They are in charge of setup and takedown. Heather and I give them what we want. One table, we kind of tell them what one table should look like, and they make the rest of them. And so they put everything out, and then they take everything down. So it's kind of a cool collaborative program. And I think that's, again, small district, small school, very supportive CT director. And so some of the things with this white coat do lend itself to having that support, like Steph said. It's a great program. It's really fun.
Yeah, like Nancy said in the chat too, me and Courtney are both curriculum leaders at our own high schools, and this is a great way to get other sections of your CTE department involved in something, and maybe something that would be more appealing to your CTE director if that was the case. So that's also probably why he's so
Oh, the
great at it,
bags.
because there's so many other departments represented.
Hey, Steph, go back 1 sec.
Oh yeah.
The bags Nancy asked in the chat. Those are just white bags my coworker Heather made into white coats. And so she had a TA make them. They're just centerpieces. And so we reuse them every year. So that was nice. She made them like the first year we did it. And now we just use them every year. They have our little patches. If Steph, if you go back one, I think you might be able to see a better patch, maybe. Oh, maybe not. On our white coats, there's in this lower corner, you can kind of see our CT director had patches made for every pathway. And so ours are utilized by being sewn on our white coats. Like our construction people, they got stickers and they're on their hard hats. Our catering department has them on like their white hats they use in the kitchen. And so again, another thing that like, and Heather, my coworker, her mom sews them on because I can suture, but I can't sew. So she sews all of the patches for us. So kind of again, another supportive CT director thing. Hopefully he gets to hear this and hears me talking so well about him. He is a great guy. He's a great marketer. Yes.
This is for sports nutrition. I created this last year because I got really bored with the same information going out to students, and we do have a nutrition and fitness class. So I did want this to be different than what they do in that class for sports nutrition specifically. This is in the spring of our sports med class. So we just did this a few weeks ago. They pick out two protein bars and they are comparing both of them. And then they bring samples with them on presentation day so that other people can try them and see what they taste like. The fun thing about this was that the kids said, we see these bars all the time and you think they taste good because of the label and the marketing that they do, and they really taste really bad. So it's also nice because they get to try it before they buy it. So they don't have to buy those protein bars because we do get a lot of athletes and I want to make sure that they know what they're taking in. And by doing this, they kind of figured out. So now when they go to the store and they're trying to pick out a protein bar for after a workout or whatever they're doing, now they know which one works for them, which one has good macros, which one has maybe not so great macros for their goals. So they had to list all those things on the board. And they really liked this one because what high schooler doesn't want to eat. But this year when we did it, there was a lot more bad ones than there were good ones, but it's amazing what they can find. And they only buy like 2 or 3 bars and then they cut them up into really small pieces. So I do always offer, if you can't afford to buy the bars, I'll buy them for you, just so that they still get the opportunity to participate.
So this is my modalities lab. We do it with my second years, which I'm sure you can tell they look so, so happy. So, obviously in the athletic training setting, we use a lot of different modalities. And so instead of me just lecture, which is a lot of medical classes, they get in partners and they pick a modality and they research and then they make these posters and then they do like a round robin kind of presentation to classmates. And then the next day, usually I give them 2 days to work on the research and the poster. We test out different modalities. As a caveat, I have a stim and an ultrasound unit. I don't do those on students. So we do a lot of ice and heat and balance type stuff. The ice bath is usually the least favorite. And these kids are definitely smiling, but they don't love it. And so they do different modalities to see how they actually work with what they could be happy. And Steph and I are the same. I have like probably 90% of my kids are athletes, if not 95, even more. And so some of these kids never had an injury. And so they don't know what their teammates are going through when they come into the training room and have a different modality being used. So it's fun for that to watch them research, but then also to get them to go through all the lovely modalities as a group. So again, just another way to kind of give them some ownership in their learning.
This is something we just did for, I teach an intro to medical careers class, one, which is just intro, mostly freshmen take it, some sophomores. And then I have an intro to medical careers two class that kids can take later, but they don't have to take it congruently. So we just did this one a few weeks ago in that class, and the expectation was all groups had to work together. They had to create something that was artistic, but still covers the guidelines of protection, must include color, and it must be something that can be worn in the workplace. And some of these, obviously, like the gloves, you wouldn't want them to wear, but they just love the bejeweling of like everything. So, but I really love the creativity that they had with some of these things. I gave each of them two disposable gowns, a face mask, shoe covers, goggles, and disposable gloves. And then they had to think of something that they wanted to do. It couldn't be a traditional PPE, you know, situation, but it did have to cover everything like normal PPE. So they actually all decorated the clear face masks because they loved the jewels. And then Addie down here has disposable glove earrings on, which I thought was very artistic and creative. Um, but come to find out, these kids really love being creative. So any opportunity I can do that is great, even if probably I wouldn't wear some of these things. But they did at the end of the period, then they did a runway show, and they each picked out a song that they wanted to do their runway show with. So they really liked that part. Anyways, this is just a fun activity. We went over PPE and bloodborne pathogens and infection and everything before, and then this is what we did at the end of that unit. This was also something that had to do with sports nutrition, and we do the energy bites every year as a healthy alternative to energy, rather than just eating just plain carbs or whatever their goal is. They got to choose from 4 different ways to make the energy balls, and I had all the materials to do that. And then so they got the period to make, they could make as many kinds as they want. If they wanted to make all 4 of them, great. They did it with a partner. And on this day, I switched classrooms with our culinary teacher. And so we got to be downstairs with all the stuff that you need to make this. And they really liked being in a different setting. And they all got to eat whatever they made at the end. And then we also did protein shakes. So we had all the things for protein shakes, fruit, protein, whey protein, different kinds of milk. And some of that can get expensive. So I'm actually not doing the protein shakes this year because we actually did a sandwich lab instead. That was cheaper. So the kids had to make a healthy sandwich instead of, and there's like a sandwich tutorial that I show them and what you should be including on your sandwich if you're trying to maintain a healthy standards for yourself. And so this was just some examples of what we usually do this every year for sports nutrition.
So this is my
Wait a
kind of
minute, Courtney, before you
yeah.
move to this one, you people from the state of Washington, y'all can talk fast, right? So
we have a limited amount of time.
we're listening fast. Michael did have a question to give y'all a chance to take a breath. Michael had a question about what class schedule you're on. Are you on a block schedule, or are you able to do this in 55 minutes or
I have 55-minute class periods. And so no, I'm not on a block schedule. We're on trimesters, so we have 3 trimesters in a year. So kids can take up to 15 classes a year, which is nice. So we just have 55 minutes. Some days we have 50, depending on what we're doing. So it just kind of depends. Steph, what do you
Graham
want?
Kapowsin is the same.
There we
That's
go.
why usually we do this over multiple days. So we might start a project, they get the period, and then the next day to work on it, and then it's due like the third day.
Yeah, it just depends on the lab. So if you like if you have questions, like email about specific, like how long it takes us, we can give you some specifics on that too. So this is my lovely fire department training. I am in a small town. I am also the athletic trainer. So I'm in a unique position where I work very closely with our fire department. When I started here, I met with our fire guys, and I go in every summer in August, right before football starts, and sit down, and every other year we switch it where I go in and teach injuries that I would call them for and how we would collaborate on those injuries. And then we flip the next summer and we do a hands-on, okay, now I have fake athletes here. Let's all work together on how to spine board, how to do all those things as a team. Because as athletic trainers probably can tell, we sometimes butt heads with our fire departments or EMS. I'm very lucky that I don't because they know me and they know what I'm capable of. But the other side of it is we do a lot of stuff together as a team as well. They come in and you can see them. They train my students in spine boarding, my second and my third years in spine boarding. So I don't have to, because I could clearly, but I don't. And then if you flip to the next slide, Steph, we get to also play victim in their trainings. And so they do a car accident scene. Actually, it's coming up in a week or so, where they like crush cars and then they go through training themselves. And my students get to come and play victims. And it's probably one of the most fun things for these kids. I only take about 12. So I usually take kids that I know are going to get into it because they have to act. Last year, one of the cars was 4 drunk kids. One of the cars was a 65-year-old Army vet that was drunk, and my student took that to another level, cussing at the fire department. They loved it. They thought it was the coolest thing. So I always encourage people that can, especially in a small area where you know you're going to see the same people with every injury that gets called. Building that relationship with the fire department is huge. Where Stefanie lives, really hard to do because you just don't know who you're going to get. I'm very lucky. These guys in these pictures, honestly, when I started out, I was the only female in the room when I was doing my trainings. And now there's a couple of female firefighters, but it's probably one of the best things that we do in our community to have that support. So we know when there's a catastrophic injury, we're working together as a team, but also my students get to see that. So that's kind of it's been a really fun relationship to develop over the last couple of years. And oh yeah, nice, very nice. Local airport, very awesome. I love it. It's great to get kids involved in those things. This is my anatomy highlighter lab. I do it in my second year program. We go through, in my second year, they review anatomy from first year, and then we review the injuries we went over, and then they get to the evaluation part. And so before we kind of get to all the fun, like special tests and all that good stuff, they go back through anatomy. And so I decided a couple of years ago to do this really fun, cheap, it's just highlighters, honestly. Pink, orange, and yellow work the best under black light. So I just bought a bunch of little handheld black lights on Amazon for like, I don't know, 20 bucks. And they go through, as you can see, this person's got their review stuff pulled up. And so they're going through their slides and making sure their anatomy looks good. It's really cool. Most of these pictures come from our photography class. Our photography class is great because they'll ask us if anybody's doing anything really cool in class, and then they'll send kids to take pictures. And so it's a really quick, easy, fun lab, except for the highlighter doesn't come off very well. So that's always fun. It wipes off from like the naked eye, but if you were to take a black light onto somebody after you took it off before they showered, it looks like a crime scene. So I always tell my cheerleaders, like, hey, you got to wear a skirt tonight at the game. Like, you might not want to be the one that gets drawn on. So it's just a fun. We do it for the foot, the knee. We'll do it for the elbow, the wrist, and the hand. I don't do it for the shoulder just because of clothing. And then the hip is also not something I'm going to do it for. So pretty fun, quick, easy lab.
This one also has to do with the foot. We do arch painting. This is also cheap because I just take the butcher paper from Leadership. And then I bought like the big cans of or bottles of paint the washable stuff, and they just put it on their foot. They walk across the paper, and then they hang them up around the room so they can see other people's arches. And we do this when we're talking about the ankle, foot, lower leg. When we start to get, maybe before taping the arch, we look at what different arches there are. And if you have a flat arch or a high arch, like you can see some of the green ones have really high arches. They don't even touch the paper. I think it's a really good visual representation of their peers and their feet. Obviously the number one complaint I get is having to let the dogs out, and I always say I don't care. So this is what we're doing. You participate or you don't participate, that's on you. But they all usually do once they see someone else doing it. So they really liked this one. And the paint comes off really easily, so I don't really have to worry about cleaning up the floor or them. I just have a bunch of baby wipes and it comes off right away.
This is my robot hand, and this is adapted from one I found online. If you click again, you'll see. So students create a movable hand from silicone, caulk, and string. And essentially it's a 3-day project. It is lengthy. It smells. My lovely neighbors in my hallway always love when we are doing our robot hands because they do smell like vinegar. But it's a really fun lab. And again, takes 3 days. So it gives the students a way to, one, learn the anatomy, but also if they accidentally mess up and don't follow the lab correctly and they cut a tendon, now they know that their finger is not moving. So it's a really fun lab. It is expensive. The caulk you can't save very well. And so like it can get quite expensive. You could do it in groups of 4, but then you have a lot of kids sitting around doing nothing. So I usually do groups of 2, and it's, again, a 3-day project. So super fun. I'm doing it next week. So we're ready. The kids love it. They see from the year before, the trimester before, and they're like, oh, the hands. And then when they're done, like Steph was showing, they have to make a boomerang with their hand. It has to be school appropriate boomerang, but they have to make a boomerang with their hand, and they turn it in, and that's how they get their final grade. Is if they don't turn that in, they don't get a grade. So very fun, but it unfortunately is expensive and time consuming. And there are the boomerangs.
Yeah. This is the knee model project that we started a really long time ago. And the kids actually are very resourceful and they find things to use, but I also, for this one, don't give a lot of guideline besides what they have to label and how I want it to be presented. So these are with PVC pipe, and this one on the far end, his dad was a welder, so they just used what they had around the house. And so obviously they're all different, and every year I get something that is even more different. This year I had a girl whose brother had a 3D printer, so she made hers in a 3D printer, which I feel like is kind of cheating, but but it looked great, so that's awesome. And she could tell me all the quadriceps muscles and all the ligaments in the knee and all that stuff. So that's what I really care about. And that's the point of this project. They have to have everything labeled, and the knee does have to do flexion and extension. So that was also part of the requirement. Besides that, they can use whatever they want to use to make sure the knee does that and make sure that it's labeled. And it can't fall apart either. That's also part of it. Toilet paper rolls do not work very well. And so they have, the problem they always have is, how am I going to get this to bend? So, and that's why they have the tennis ball in the middle, but they usually do a great job. And I give class time, but if I see that no one has brought in things to work on it with, then I don't do class time and they have to work on it outside of school.
Stephanie, we do have a question from Tika.
Oh yeah.
On the chat about
Any suggestions on how to spread out while covering? Ooh, that's a tough question. 1.5 year for 90 minutes. That's tough. I don't do an end of pathway assessment at all, because these are all such different units. There's multiple summatives in each unit. that assess those specific standards. And so the ankle standards are different than the knee standards. So I don't do like a year long. I also don't do written tests anymore. So we both have pretty much year long classes. Mine's 2 trimesters. My second years are a whole year. So I get them all 3 trimesters. So I'm able to kind of spread it out a little bit. Steph, I don't know what yours is.
Yeah, both of mine are 2 trimesters, but also in Sports Med 1, we only go through lower extremity, and in Sports Med 2, we only do upper extremity. So that could also be a way to break it down where you're not doing the whole body in a whole semester. I don't know what you do currently, but that, and you could even break it down more to like only do the lower leg, foot, and ankle. And then, you know, whenever they take it again, or if they take it again, it could be another section of the body. There's certain things I would probably cut out, like sports nutrition, if you already offer a nutrition class. We always still do banned substances and steroid use, which they could get in health if they go over drugs. So you could cut those units out if you had to. But that's just my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. So this next one is what I do in my second year, and Steph, I don't think does it the same as me. And everybody's a little different. Obviously our kids are in high school and they need to go further into their medical career to learn things, but I do special test practicals with my second and third years. Really more second years. The third years kind of assist me as far as teaching. I teach a second year class and a third year class in the same class period. And so my third years do a lot of like, when we get to these, they do a lot of like helping me go around the room and make sure the kids are understanding because they learned it the year before. But essentially the kids, we talk about special tests. I show them how to do them. They get with a partner for a day and practice. They fake a soap note. So I give them a fake injury and they act it out. And then they have to write a soap note on it. And then they get to come into my training room because my training room and classroom are down the hall from each other. And they get to come into the classroom and or my training room with just me and their partner, and I run them through a practical. And to be honest, like the kids always say I'm intimidating anyways, but any kid that's going to go into the medical field, you're going to have practicals and they're really scary and they're not fun. And so I love giving them that initial special test type practical in high school, because then they at least know what's coming. And they can kind of prepare themselves and figure out, okay, I really struggle when I do this in the practical. So I need to make sure I'm, whatever. So while I'm sure it is very intimidating to them, a lot of my students do go into some sort of medical field. And so getting them ready for that is big for me. And that's why I spend most of my second year is spent on special tests and other stuff like that, just getting them kind of ready for that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that's just kind of, it's a good way to get kids ready for what's to come in the future, because it is a little scary. I wish I would have had that in high school because I did not. So it was a little scary when I got into undergrad.
And we do soap notes after each
Yep.
Body section. So we do it for after ankle, foot, lower leg. Then you'll do soap notes after knee. And the way I test for special tests is I wrote all the special tests on note cards, and I give them a review sheet, and they have to do the review the day before with a partner. The next day, I call them out into the hallway one by one, and they have to draw 3 cards from my stack, and they don't know which 3 it is. And then they have to perform them. So it could be, tape and arch. It could be tape and ankle. It could be do the Taylor tilt test or do anterior drawer for the knee. And then that's what they get. So that way they have to study all of it because they don't know what they're getting when they come do the test. So that's kind of how different me and Courtney are with that part. Pretty similar, but different.
Yeah.
This is for my health science classes. I worked with Delta Dental to add a dental professional pathways program. Our skill center does not have dentistry as an option. So I was trying to bring dentistry into GK by adding this program. And I worked with Lolinda Turner, who is out in Washington. And now she is actually moving to where Courtney is and opening up the dental school out in Yakima. But she trained me to be able to do this program in my classroom where the kids get to do hands-on. They get to fill cavities, they get to do sealant and make crowns. And so they have all the equipment. I'm actually in the process of still ordering equipment because I had applied for a grant and I did not get it, but there was donations that I had that I have been using. And so slowly but surely, this will go into our second year or Med Careers 2 class. We do offer a workshop on a Saturday usually once in the fall and once in the spring for students that want to learn about dentistry so that they can see if it's something that they want to go into. Dentistry is very hard in our area because there are no dentistry programs except for one that is like 45 minutes away. So within where we are, we're kind of rural. And so we don't have a dentistry program that's readily available. So this was a great way to bring that into the classroom, and the kids, they do this on the teeth molds, and they get to do all that hands-on stuff that they don't normally get to.
Okay, we're gonna start kind of moving a little. We don't have a ton of time left, so I want to make sure we get through most of these. So we will probably wait till questions like for the end, just so you guys know. This is something we do in the Valley. There's like 7 or 8 of us in the Valley that have programs. And so mid-winter time, December-ish, we bring like 20 to 25 kids each of us do, and they go through 5 different rotations. And so they get paired with a couple people from our school, and then they get paired with a bunch of other kids. We go through casting, suturing, anatomage or an organ game. We have a K-tape lab. We've got team building labs, and then we do like a medical minute to win it. Super fun. All of us athletic trainers teach a different one. I was in charge of the anatomage and the card lab. That's why you can see those pictures the most. And so we each teach, and the kids love it because they get to meet other kids in sports med, which is fun because then they see those kids at sporting events sometimes. And they're like, oh, hey, I saw you not long ago. And it's really fun. It's great for us in the Valley. We're very close. We spend a lot of time together. So it's cool for the kids to also see our relationships whether we're at games, seeing each other, or at this. So if you have anybody in your area that you could do like a hands-on thing, I would highly encourage it. All of us bring stuff with us. We all like, it's pretty cheap once you think about it. Like I bring a box of casting tape, but everybody else brings a box. And so it kind of adds up. And we just we've stocked up over the years. We got a grant a couple years ago for this, and we were able to buy a lot of this stuff. And so we do have a pretty good stockpile. But it's a super fun lab or lab day. And they're out of school all day. They get the catering department where we do this, the school that hosts us, they make us lunch, and it's a pretty fun hands-on day for us. So they love it. The kids beg to go to this. So it's pretty cool. Oh, and this is mine too. I'm sure all of you do engaging type review games. Jenga is a fun one for us. I don't do written tests, like I said, but we still do a unit wrap up of sorts, whether it's a project or a document of sorts. And then before we do that, we do a Jenga, depending on the unit. I just bought colored Jenga sets on Amazon. I think I've got 8 of them. We use them in our health science department. All of us use this as one of our review, and it's kind of fun. I just wrote a bunch of questions for every color that's in the Jenga, and then kids, have to pick a color and they roll a dice that gives them a color. They push it out, and then somebody on the other team asks them a question, and we got to go back and forth. I do Harry Potter points in my house or in my school. I am a huge Harry Potter nerd, and so this is one of those games that I tell them, okay, it's for Harry Potter points, so they know to kind of take it seriously. And it's a lot of fun. It did take a really long time for me to set it up question wise. It was a lot. I just essentially took all my old tests that I had and made them into questions that they would ask in Jenga. So that's one of my engaging ones. I know Steph's got the next one. I think hers is the next one. Yep.
Yeah, these are this is a Jeopardy game that I created, but now they have online Jeopardy creation websites. So you could essentially just plug in some questions and answers, and it makes it for you. We actually just did this, not this one. We did a vital signs one today. And I bought whiteboards for each group and then whiteboard markers, and I give one whiteboard to each group. I played the introduction to Jeopardy while they're thinking, which is about 30 seconds. So they get 30 seconds to write down their answer. Then whoever got it right gets the points. And so this is really fun. And this usually does take me the whole period, which is nice. They're engaged the whole time. And I've also used buzzers before, but they're more annoying than they are helpful. So I opted not for the buzzers anymore.
Okay, this is our build a spine, kind of like Steph's knee model. I do the knee model too. And so kind of the same thing. We do this in our second year. So we talk about the spine and the brain, and then they build a model based on whichever one they want. It's pretty simple. The kids are supposed to bring their own material. So I usually tell them to go to the Dollar Tree. I introduce it on a Friday so they know it's coming. So they have the weekend to get supplies. I'm like Stephanie, I'll always say, like, can't afford it, let me know, I'll buy you stuff, give me a list. And then they just have a list of what they need to label, and they use their own brains to do so. You can see Maddie over here as I'm kind of giggling because she's graduating here soon, and she actually just emailed me, and she bought a helmet. I think it's like a kid's helmet from like Fred Meyer, and then put a bunch of sour straws that she cut up. So it's a pretty like, hey, this is what you got to do. Here's your time. I usually give them like 2 days in class. And then if I see that they're working really, really hard and they just need a little bit of more time, I'll give them that third day. We keep them on display for quite a while until the food starts going bad. The candy doesn't really go bad, but like a lot of kids will use other things as well. So I have to throw them away at some point, but it's a really fun lab. And again, another thing, like instead of them having to take a test on spine anatomy and labeling all this stuff, why don't I just let them make something that shows me they know the spine anatomy? It's a lot easier. Giving kids choice is huge. We at our school, we're very much UDL and different things. I'll breeze through these next couple slides because it's just about guest speakers and stuff. But what I will tell you is, aside from our fire department, this is one of our local nurse practitioners. He's actually a parent of one of my multiple of my students. He comes in and teaches my advanced kids how to suture. So it's great. So Steph and I will both tell you like guest speakers. And then the next slide, field trips is going to be kind of our biggest things. We do lots of field trips, local colleges, local resource areas. They do the Grand Canyon ones that Steph will talk about too. Like those kind of things are huge. We go to UW. So there's not really a point to spend a ton of time on these because they're kind of basic to whatever you do, but go ahead, Steph.
This is the same. We had like the Taylor Hooten Foundation came in last year to talk about steroid use in high school athletes. He was awesome. And if you ever have a chance to do that, he spoke to our school. Then we get like respiratory therapy. We have a blood drive 3 times a year. And I'm sure it's the same thing that you guys already do. But our local colleges sometimes hold a hands-on activity field trip. And so that's what most of these pictures are from.
We do a healthcare career fair here. Oops, go back stuff. So we have a healthcare career class, much like most places do. I know Steph has one similar one. And so the kids spend, and I don't teach this anymore. I used to, but I only teach sports med now. Essentially, they, based on the HOSA guidelines, because we do HOSA, they pick a career with a partner and they build this board. And Morgan, who teaches it currently, she gives them every Wednesday to work on their project, and she breaks it down in chunks. So like this Wednesday, you're focusing on salary or whatever it is. And then in the last couple of weeks, they spend actually making the board. And then we have a big day where we I say rent, but like tell the PE department we're in the aux gym. And we put the boards up and we open it to the public. This gentleman here in this blue jacket, he's actually our school board president. So like parents come, kids dress up, they use props, and it's a super fun way for kids to show us, one, that they learned something while they were doing it, but also just for other people to see what these kids are doing in class. We invite anybody from anybody in the school district. And then again, we send personal invites out to these kids' parents as well. And then if they're good enough, and they feel like they want to do it in HOSA, then they take it and we enter it into the HOSA poster guidelines as well. So it's kind of a twofer for us, which is nice.
I'm going to skip this one because that one is in the document, but I think this is the last one that we have on here. This is for our advanced sports med program, sports med 2, if you have it. We have a whole unit on mental health in athletics, and it's been growing over the last few years since COVID. I created a book study over this book, and you could really do this on any book that you find interesting about mental health for athletes. This story struck me personally only because she was a runner and she loved soccer. And Maddie's story is not unlike many other young athletes that we've had before. Even at our high schools and local colleges, they have the same problems, but not willing to talk about it. So this gives a space for students. And my Sports Med 2 class only has 15 students. So we have a small class to be able to talk about this, and they feel safe talking about it. So we do a book study. We meet once a week to talk about 3 chapters at a time. We have a list of questions that they have to answer. They do activities. We're doing this right now, and now we're on our social cleanse for the next few days. And so they actually they want to participate and they want to do these things. They just don't know how. So we have started this book study, hoping to add some more books later on that they could choose from and not have to just do this on the one.
Yeah,
book.
I do this too, thanks to Steph. I just finished ours, and I actually probably one of the most impactful things that Stephanie and I do in our entire sports medicine curriculum. We are both athletic trainers, so we've both had athletes that have wanted to commit suicide. We both had to work through that with kids. And this book, I just finished it. Literally, we just had our last one, and the last one's always the toughest one because it's the last couple chapters. We all know where the book ends. And my admin really supports it. We send out letters to parents before. I've never had a parent say no. I always tell parents, if you don't feel like your student should do this, please email me or call me. And I've never had a parent say no. We've been doing this I think this is year 6 for us doing this, at least 5. And probably one of my favorite things I do every year. And I stress it to the kids. We spend they journal when they do mine. I don't know if Steph does it, but I make my kids, I buy them this little mini journal on Amazon, and they have to take notes from every chapter and reflect on every chapter. And then we do meet once a week. And it's a very impactful book. I did add a second book study to my 3rd years. We just read the book When We Do Harm. It's a book on medical error. And so we just started that, which not as impactful, but still interesting to read. But if you haven't done a sports psych unit, and I will stress that this is good for probably just sports medicine. I had somebody reach out, and it would be very hard to do this in an anatomy class or anything like that, because unless you have some sports psych background as an athletic trainer, you probably shouldn't be doing it. And it is a pretty sensitive subject if you don't have kind of that background with sports psychology. But probably the best thing I do, and I could bet that all of our students would say the same thing. They probably thoroughly enjoy this. And a lot of kids don't like to read nowadays. So it is on Spark Notes though, so you do have to be aware of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. Actually, a student told me about that.
Oh yeah, no, I found it.
Last 2 slides and other hands-on projects. I would just want to make sure that you guys get our information, because I think we are
we are out of time, and we can take some questions for sure.
Yeah.
And Nancy, you're going to post these slides in the Google Drive link. You are?
Yes. It won't be tomorrow. I have to wait on the webmaster, but as soon as we get this recording, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay. We'll get the recording up, and also the slides. And does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question? I mean, I'm about ready to sign up for one of these courses, I think. You two really kind of underestimate yourself. You have some great things going on. And I know that some folks on the call or on the webinar here probably do some of this great work too, but we just appreciate you like putting this together and these slides and the Google Drive that we'll share out. But how about any friends on the call want to unmute yourself and ask questions to Courtney or Stefanie before we close out?
Hi, this is Jody Sweeney. I'm in New York. And I know it's not socially correct right now to ask people how old they are, but I'm going to tell you that you two are much younger than I am. So I'm not asking you how old you are. I'm telling you I'm much older. But I really think it's nice to see people team up together and put a presentation like this together. I wondered what you meant about socially cleanse. What do you mean by socially cleansing with your students?
We make them we make them do 24 hours with no social media. So one of the things that Maddie, the girl in the book, struggled with was social media was always like perfect and she wasn't, or she felt like she wasn't. And so we have this, I have my students, I think Steph does it the same way. Like I tell my kids, pick one social media app that you think you're on too much, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, and take it off your phone for 24 hours. And I want you to reflect on how you felt without it. So that's kind of a tough one for the kids. Honestly, I don't struggle with it. But the kids really struggle, and it's a fun thing to do. But it's a struggle for those kids.
They actually this year, because we just talked about it yesterday, and I said, would you be willing to do 3 days? So you do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Oh,
And they're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. And they're like, what app? And I said, all of them. Any social media that you have, take them off your phone. And they said, done. They literally went through their phone 3 days. That's not a big deal. I'm like, sure, okay, but they were like, they said, I'm so excited to do this because I need to do it, and I don't have a reason not to.
yep.
So, they were excited about that part, which, yeah, usually I give them like, I think actually in the assignment it says a week, but it's really long. So I said, just try 3 days and see how long you last. But yeah, I had a kid that took off every app on his phone, which is nice. It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting.
Yeah, and there again, I won't tell you how old I am. Well, I could. But anyway, that's awesome. It's a great activity to have your kids do. And I have to say, welcome back to the 80s when you do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're about to tell us how old you are.
Stephanie and I were alive in the 80s, so we know we get it.
Yeah.
We were both alive in the 80s.
Okay, other questions?
This is Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
This is Melissa. I'm from North Carolina. I was wondering, hey, I wonder if there's an age you think too young to do that.
The book study?
The book and especially freshmen, is that?
Yeah, so I don't teach freshmen. I don't allow anybody below sophomore to join my first year, and we both do this in our second year. So for me, they're at least juniors. And those kids have also spent at least a year with all the other kids in second year. So we call ourselves a sports med family. We spend a lot of time together. And so I would not recommend doing it before junior year.
We do the same. We don't allow freshmen in sports med. They're actually required to take the Intro to Medical Careers class first before they can even take sports med. So that's why I get a lot of freshmen in that class, and then mostly juniors and seniors in sports med.
Yep, I agree. And again, like supportive admin, letter home to parents. I involve my counseling staff. We just hired like a mental health counselor at the high school this year, and so she's just for mental health, and she came in and talked to the kids. Like it's a very involved unit and very open and honest, but I would definitely not do it before junior year.
We also this year I added my students made like they wanted to make mental health kits for youth programs. But before we got to that, we made like lava bead bracelets so they can put essential oils on them and then be able to calm down during the day. I had our social worker come in and do breathing exercises for them. They sent the whole period just focused on breathing, and then We also offer mental health first aid for high school students, for teens. And so we are having our social worker will be coming in during 6 of my class periods to do the mental health first aid course, so they can all get certificates. So it's not just the book. We try to focus on other things that they can do outside of school and outside of class, and stuff that they can pass on to athletes.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
Hi, I'm Donna from Michigan. I was wondering how do you deliver your lecture time? Because you spend a lot of time doing your projects, which is awesome. But one of the problems I have is how do you not stand up there and go through lectures because kids aren't necessarily being motivated?
Well, I'm going to be honest, I don't do a ton of lecture because they won't listen. I think I spend at least 15 minutes at the beginning of every class period on lecture. After that, we move on to something else. And then I might come back to it at the end. But we do some of that like backwards design where they need to go home and take notes in order to get the information. And then when they come to school the next day, they should, because all the PowerPoints and all the notes and everything are on Canvas. So they have access to all of those things. So I feel like our job is more to apply what they should already know. And sometimes I feel like, if you didn't take the time, then, that's on you. But
I'm a little different, I think. Oops, I'm sorry, school's getting out, so there's gonna be a bunch of announcements. I lecture because if I'm being honest, in grad school, that's all we had. Like we had a ton of lecture, hands-on stuff too, but we definitely had a lot of lectures. So I kind of play it a little different. Sorry, our principal is loud. And so I'm, like today, perfect example, we're doing our pharmacology unit right now in our second year, and so we're learning about performance enhancing drugs, and I spent 25 minutes going through a slideshow, and then I pause and say, okay, let's talk about this, and then the next day I'll finish it. So yes, we do have a lot of projects, we do, but I do try to do a very healthy balance of both, because when they get into the medical classes in college, it's going to be a lot of lecture, and so they need to know how to take notes. We spend time learning how to take notes, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I go with mine.
that's also part of it too, though, is that we do teach them how they should be taking notes. Like we spend time at the beginning of the year. I provide a notebook. I provide everything that they have or they need. So there really is no excuse to have the correct information. I mean, and yeah, some days are longer lecture than others, but I really try to focus on the fact, like, and when we go over the brain, they also know, like, I tell them, just tell me, Miss Brophy, I'm in amygdala hijack and I cannot understand anything else that you're going through. So please, can you take a break and then we'll come back.
I do the same.
To
Brand
teach them how to
new.
take notes and how to study is also.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Great
course.
job.
Thank you. Any
Yeah,
other
short
questions?
attention span.
Yeah, they're teenagers.
Yeah.
I just put that in there. I also appreciate, I believe it was you, Stephanie, that mentioned about the mental health. Mental health first aid.
Yes.
So I'll just throw that in. If you come to the conference in Glendale in October, we have a pre-conference session and you get to see them both. One is on mental health first aid, and then the other one is on classroom activities, similar to some of the things that Courtney and Stephanie have talked about today. So we had a mental health first aid webinar earlier this year, and just really found that might be something that we need to get out there. And so it'll be a part of our conference in October.
Love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
that's great. I went to our athletic training conference, our District 10 conference in Boise this year. And I did a pre-conference class just for the mental health first aid with other athletic trainers. And it was really nice to be able to talk about that stuff with other professionals that I don't get to see that often. And so it was really beneficial to me. Turns out it's very expensive to get certified to teach that class, which is really unfortunate. Because I wish I could get certified so I could teach it to my students and not have to have someone in, but
Super
yeah,
expensive.
it is. Like, why?
Yeah.
Well, they need to back that down, don't they?
No.
Right.
If Courtney and Stephanie, if you'll just stay on along with the officers of the Health Science Educators Association, and Kathy as the host, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, thank you very much to both Stephanie and Courtney. That was fantastic. Got a lot of good new ideas. Keep the creativity going. For those of you who joined us for the webinar, you will receive a certificate of attendance in about 10 days to 2 weeks. And again, this webinar, along with the earlier ones we had, there are videos that you can view them whenever it's convenient for you. Go to the National Consortium website, and there's under professional development, go to the webinars page. Tons of stuff in there. So thank you, everybody, for